Sometimes the biggest things start in the most, well, unexpected places.
That's definitely true.
Like the United Blood Nation, right? The
Yeah.
East Coast Bloods. I mean, who'd guess that this huge East Coast presence actually started behind bars?
At Rikers Island specifically. Yeah.
Rikers Island. That's where we're starting this deep dive today. We've pulled together quite a bit of information, its history, how it's set up, what they actually do, and some big run-ins with the law. So the goal here really is to boil it down, get to the core of the UBN, cut through the noise, and help make sense of this organization.
And what's really striking, I think, is that beginning, July 16th, 1993. You've got Omar Porti, OG Mac, and Leonard Mackenzie, OG Deadeye.
Both inmates at the time.
Exactly, inside Rikers. And they pulled together these, well, separate gangs, like the Nine Trey Gangsters, GKB, Sex, Money, Murder, a few others.
Okay.
And the sources suggest the initial reason was, well, pretty basic.
Protection.
Protection from other groups. Yeah, mainly the Nietas and the Latin Kings. They were, more established forces in there at that point.
So it was like a defensive alliance born inside the jail system.
Pretty much, out of necessity.
And it's important to note, right, this wasn't like a direct branch of the California Bloods we often hear about.
No, more like a separate East Coast thing. A loose affiliation, maybe, but definitely its own entity.
Right. And what's kind of wild is how quickly this thing formed in a New York jail just spread.
It really is. As members got released, they basically carried that UBN identity out with them.
Took it home.
Yeah, set up shop, you could say, all along the East Coast.
So looking at the timeline, the 90s were really their growth spurt.
Oh, absolutely. A massive growth spurt. They rose incredibly fast on the East Coast. Sources say by the end of the decade, they'd actually become more dominant, more influential than the Crips in the region.
Wow. Overtaking the Crips on the East Coast. That's significant.
It really is. Which makes the next big event, around 2001, even more critical to understand. It kind of suggests there might have been a vacuum, maybe? Or the existing gangs weren't as unified?
Yeah, maybe not equipped for that prison-based organizing the UBN did so effectively.
Could be. But 2001, that's the turning point.
That's the Porti arrest, right?
Yeah.
Omar Porti, the founder.
Exactly. Arrested and then convicted on RICO charges.
REO, that's a Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. The big federal hammer against organized crime.
That's the one. He got hit hard. 50-year sentence.
50 years. And he's currently in ADX Florence, the Supermax.
Yep. But here's the thing. Like you said, taking out the leader didn't actually kill the organization.
No, it sounds like it caused ripples, maybe fractures.
Exactly. The sources talk about splintering, infighting between different sets, different factions. It became less centralized, maybe.
And the other founder, Mackenzie.
Leonard Mackenzie, OG Deadeye. Word is he's reportedly stepped away from the gangster life altogether, retired, so to speak.
Interesting. So one founder locked up for decades, the other apparently out. But the UBN carries on.
It does, which, says something about how these groups are structured. Even if the top guys are gone, the framework can persist. Maybe it becomes more decentralized, more regional conflicts pop up.
Power vacuums?
Precisely. Loyalty shifts from the central figure more towards the local set leaders. We see that pattern.
Okay, so let's dig into that structure a bit. It wasn't just chaos after Porti, right? There's an actual hierarchy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Quite defined, actually. There are ranks, specific duties tied to those ranks.
And a national council, the council.
Right, made up of leaders from the different subgroups, the sets. And the nerve center, it seems, is still New York.
New York City, but also
the New York prison system. That's crucial. The leadership structure seems deeply embedded there.
Which really highlights that problem, doesn't it? How do you stop a gang that organizes and potentially leads from inside the prisons meant to contain them?
It's a massive challenge. The very place meant to isolate can become an incubator.
Okay, and they have rules. This isn't just random violence. The 31 rules.
The 31, that seems fundamental.
And these cover.
What?
Like personal conduct.
Yeah, how members should act, procedures for messing up infractions, discipline, and a huge one, absolutely no snitching.
Cooperating with law enforcement is a definite no-go.
A cardinal sin. Plus, they collect dues, money from members. Some stays local, some goes up the chain.
It almost sounds like a twisted corporate structure, or like you said, a dark fraternity.
That's one way to look at it. And membership. Mostly African-American males, but not exclusively.
Right. The sources mention some diversity, Asian American, Hispanic, white members too, and female members. It varies.
Yeah, their status and role seem to differ depending on the specific set. It's not uniform across the board.
And getting in, the initiation.
It's pretty intense. You either get vouched for, brought in by someone, or you kind of have to prove yourself through dominance. Then there's the beat-in.
31 seconds, right.
Well,
Physical
okay.
assault.
31 seconds. And after that, you're expected to learn everything, the history, the oaths, and especially the 31 rules.
They call it being brought home or bumming home.
Right. And once you're in, you're expected to put in work, do what the leadership tells you, contribute to the set's activities.
And this leadership, even from prison, I mean, think about 2017. Prosecutors alleged Pedro Gutierrez was running things from his cell.
While serving time for murder, no less.
It keeps coming back to that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The control exerted from within the system.
It really underscores the challenge. And these factions, these sets, they often identify themselves by local phone area codes, right?
Yeah, like a marker for their territory.
Yeah.
So it's local, but connected.
Exactly. Adaptable deep roots, even with leaders locked up. So what are they actually doing? What are the main activities?
Well, the sources are pretty consistent. Number one seems to be drug trafficking. That's the main moneymaker.
Okay. Drugs primarily.
But not just drugs. Also prostitution, robbery, extortion, even counterfeiting comes up. A whole range of criminal stuff.
A diversified criminal portfolio, you might say.
Yeah. And they have their symbols, ways to identify. Graffiti, for instance.
Right, the markings, like crossing out a C.
Yeah, for Crip Killer. Or CK, same meaning. The number is 031 for the rules.
And crossing out an S?
Because slobs is a derogatory term used against Bloods. And tattoos, too.
What kind of tattoos?
Common ones are like 3 dots, supposed to look like a dog paw. Bulldogs are also a symbol. And MOB.
MOB meaning?
Could be member of Bloods.
Yeah.
Or sometimes money over bitches.
Right. Symbols for recognition, for intimidation, part of the identity.
Exactly. That visual language is key for them, internally and externally.
Makes sense. And looking at the law enforcement side, well, the timeline shows it's been a long, ongoing fight, hasn't it?
Definitely. Porte's indictment in 2001 was just the start.
Not the end by any means.
No way. 2006, he had a big crackdown in New Jersey, focused on the 9 Trey Gangsters faction.
Okay.
Then 2009, indictments down in Charlotte, North Carolina, mostly drug distribution stuff.
Yeah.
And Operation Heat in 2010. That was interesting. It uncovered this weird alliance.
Alliance? Between who?
Between 9 Trey Gangsters and the Blue Cheese crime family.
The Mafia, really?
Yeah. Apparently working together to smuggle contraband into an East Jersey prison. Shows how different groups can team up when it's convenient, you know?
Wow. Yeah, it highlights that fluid, pragmatic nature of these networks. Profit over rivalry sometimes.
Then 2012, more arrests in North Carolina. 28 UBN members hit with racketeering.
Okay, so continued pressure.
And then a huge one in 2017. Remember, Pedro Gutierrez allegedly running things from prison.
Yeah.
That operation indicted 83 9 Trey members.
Oh.
83. Across multiple states.
That's a massive sweep. What kind of charges?
Everything. Racketeering, conspiracy, murder, attempted murder, assault, drug dealing, guns, robbery, financial crimes. The works.
Sounds like they threw the book at them.
Pretty much. And they got convictions on nearly all of them. 82 individuals, including Gutierrez himself. A major hit.
That had to have an impact.
You think so? The same year, 2017, there is Operation Tin Panda in the D.C. area. More arrests, seized a lot of drugs, guns.
Another significant bust.
Yeah, and the leader of the Imperial Gangsta Bloods set down there, got sentenced as part of that.
Okay, so hitting different factions, different locations.
All right. Then, maybe more famously, 2018, the rapper Tekashi 6909.
Ah, yes, I remember that. He was tied up with 9 Trey too, wasn't he?
Deeply. Arrested with other members on racketeering charges. And then he cooperated.
Flipped, which goes right against that no snitching rule.
Exactly. Caused a huge stir. And the busts keep coming, even more recently. 2020, indictments for a sex trafficking ring in the Bronx, allegedly run by Bloods members. In 2022, another Imperial Gangster Bloods member sentenced, again for sex trafficking and related charges.
So the activities continue and law enforcement continues to pursue them. It's this constant push and pull.
Yeah, these examples, they span like 2 decades, multiple states. It really paints a picture of just how resilient and widespread this organization is, despite all the pressure.
A persistent challenge for law enforcement across the entire East Coast.
So let's try and wrap this up. We've seen the UBN start in Rikers, this protective alliance that just exploded onto the East Coast.
Became a dominant force, yeah.
We looked at its structure, the hierarchy, the importance of the 31 rules, their criminal activities, drugs being key. But Lots of other stuff, too.
And the symbols they use.
Right. And we've traced these major law enforcement actions, these ongoing efforts to dismantle the UBN and its different sets.
Which brings us back to a really critical point, I think.
What's that?
Well, given that it started in prison and we still see allegations of leaders running things from prison, what does that really tell us about the challenges of actually controlling gang activity inside correctional facilities? Is there something fundamentally flawed in how we approach that?
Or is it almost cyclical? Does the prison system itself inadvertently strengthen or reorganize these groups sometimes?
That's the big question, isn't it? A really tough one to grapple with.
Yeah, that's definitely something to think about. This deep dive, it covers a lot, but it really is just scratching the surface.
Absolutely.
There's so much more you could get into. The whole history of NYC gangs, how effective RICO really is long term, the huge challenges of prison reform.
All interconnected issues.
Definitely. So hopefully this gives everyone a solid foundation, but we encourage you to keep exploring. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.